Christopher Nolan's long-awaited, highly anticipated new film, Dunkirk. Now, this movie has been incredibly anticipated, hyped from the beginning, arguably the most hyped movie of the summer, which says a lot when you have Spider-Man Homecoming coming out to Annabelle Creation, Transformers. You've had a lot of highly anticipated to a degree new movies come out, and I would say Dunkirk does beat all of them. I think the only one is Wonder Woman. I think that's maybe the only one that was more anticipated. Dunkirk took in a ridiculously good $50.5 million haul, and for a while, Warner Brothers was keeping the budget of this movie under wraps. It actually was rumored to cost upwards of $175 million up until a couple days ago when Warner Brothers revealed the budget to be $100 million. That's what they said it was, which is cheap in the eyes of the studios, especially for a director like Nolan. He'll make at least that money back and more domestically.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good for Christopher Nolan. He's been on the up and up, and he's still going up.
Ever since Batman, he's really got security. He really does, absolutely. But I'm dancing around the inevitable. We are going to get into some Dunkirk talk at the moment. I'll go into explain the plot a little bit, even though there's not a ton to really explain, and I'll give my thoughts on it as well. Dunkirk is a story told from three perspectives: land, sea, and air. It focuses on the famous Dunkirk rescue, where 400,000 soldiers, mostly of British, Belgium, and French. There's a few Belgian, but it was mostly French and British descendant. They were stranded on the coastal town of Dunkirk, France, during World War II. So in 1940. So the film revolves around those three particular perspectives, and a handful of characters break through this sort of mix too. You have Tommy, played by Fionn Whitehead, who's a British Army private. You have Mark Rylance, Oscar-winning Mark Rylance. He won for his role in Bridge of Spies. He plays Mariner, as well as the father of a young boy named Peter, played by Tom Glyn Carney. Him and his son and their friend are traveling the English Channel. They're trying to cross the English Channel amidst what is trying to be this, what is ongoing to be this rescue of these 400,000 men against horribly insurmountable odds. And then you get the air perspective. You get really the perspective of a particular pilot as well, who's played by Tom Hardy. He's functioning as a pilot trying to clear the air, shoot down enemy German soldiers and their dogfighters in order to prompt this rescue. And that's about the extent of the characters that you have in this movie. This is one of the leanest Nolan pictures, one of the leanest pictures by Christopher Nolan. He, of course, directed the most recent Batman trilogy. He directed Batman Begins. He directed Dark Knight. He directed Dark Knight Rises, directed Memento, Insomnia. He's directed quite a few movies, and this is one of his shortest. It's only 106 minutes. Feels about that long, too. Doesn't feel much longer or much shorter than that. This is a film of tremendous aesthetic value. This is a movie that has incredible cinematography done by Hoyt van Hoytema, who has worked on a plethora of films, most notably Spectre, Interstellar. He's worked on as well, which is another Nolan film. He even did the cinematography, which I think is probably his best, even with this movie. He worked on Her, the movie with Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know if you've seen that one, Dom. I don't know if you've seen it.
Is that? Oh, that's the Joaquin Phoenix version.
Yes.
He's essentially talking to Siri.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, that was a different kind of movie.
Absolutely.
But it's a very Joaquin Phoenix movie.
It is. It is. Directed by Spike Jonze, who is one of the leading men behind the show Jackass. There you have it. But anyway,
we're in safe harbor.
For Dunkirk, however, this is a movie, again, of a tremendous aesthetic value. It is widely encouraged that you see it. By Nolan himself says the way you need to see Dunkirk is on a 70 millimeter IMAX projection. Since the film was largely shot on IMAX 65 millimeter and large format film stock, Nolan is a big proponent of film stock and original celluloid and stuff like that, and original shooting on film versus shooting on digital. So he recommends that you need to see this movie in 70 millimeter IMAX. Unfortunately, only 35 theaters across the whole country, and Dunkirk is in 3,500, have shown the film in 70 millimeter, unfortunately.
the proud, the 70 millimeter.
It's just about having the capabilities and stuff, and only a handful of theaters have it. There was one, I believe, the Music Box in Chicago did show it in 70 millimeter, in addition to a theater in Indianapolis. But that is the recommended format in which you see Dunkirk. Okay, I did not. I saw it in traditional IMAX. Most people saw it in DCP, which is digital cinema projection, digital cinema package. Excuse me. That's the normal. If you go to a movie theater, you're more than likely watching in DCP. This movie is going to be, and I'll kind of conclude this. So Dominic, I know you're itching to get your thoughts too. I'll kind of conclude it with this. Again, film of a tremendous aesthetic value. Lee Smith, the editor of most Nolan films, edits this movie in a very non-linear fashion. He edits it. He cross-cuts these sort of three parts, land, sea, and air, all with one another, and makes it this very this film that really humanizes war in a very unique and difficult way, which we will certainly talk about later. This is a movie that's really going to depend, and I'm going to say this over and over again this hour. This is a movie that's going to depend how you see it. It really depends on how you see it, where you go to see it, and stuff like that. Somebody watching this movie 2 years from now on HBO or Netflix is going to have a vastly different experience. I'd argue for the worse than if they had seen it in the theater. And that's probably my biggest complaint about Dunkirk and my biggest point of praise. This movie is a lot like Gravity, Run Lola Run, a movie that warrants itself to an experience, a movie that you owe it to yourself to see in theaters because that is the original way to see it. Because Dunkirk is problematically thin on character drama as a result, it really depends on how you see this film. And I fear that from 2 years from now, people that are even championing the film as one of the best war films ever made in the present day are going to see a drastically different film for the worse in the coming years, because Dunkirk does not loan itself to being viewed on a regular HD television. This is a film that's very much a theatrical experience, and I will never fault Nolan for giving people a reason to go to the theater in an increasingly expensive times. I like Dunkirk a lot. I think it is a very well done film, but I do not think it is A, one of the greatest war films of all time, and B, I think the experience lends itself to a lot of one's overall opinion on the film.
Wow. There's a real critic right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Well, for me, you touched on it earlier. This movie was lean, incredibly. Not only lean on characters, obviously, there's some other supporting cast there, but lean on characters, lean on lines, lean on time, lean on so many other things I'm sure I could name. But it does. Actually, I can appreciate this film in that it's so focused on the British perspective, not even the British perspective, but just those, essentially three characters, or, in their immediate circle. You don't even hear the words in a World War II movie. I don't think you hear German. The word German, the word Nazi, or the word Hitler at all in this movie. In fact, in the opening, like very literally the first title card of the movie, right? And the first text, it just says the enemy has surrounded French and British forces. So it is so entirely focused on the British, and even more so magnified on these characters. And for that, I have to give it tremendous praise, because I feel like when you watch a movie and you're reviewing a movie, really, it goes into the context of what how you've been the past week or month, right? So what you've seen before that. And I feel like in this summer movie season here in 2017, we've had, it's typical summer movie stuff, right? It's so much grandiose scope and so much grandiose, projection of what you see all around you. So you got, your Transformers movies, your Guardians of the Galaxies, or I think you call Guardians of the Galaxies was color vomit on screen at one point. Whereas with this movie, it's so tight and so reined in that it contrasted so well, and it will absolutely be one of the most memorable movies coming out of the summer movie season 2017, if not the year. And I agree in that it is not one of the best war films of all time, because that's a little dicey to say. I might even regret these words, but it doesn't even feel that dedicated as a war movie, and that sounds oxymoronic, but as a story, as a self-contained story, it was so it hit you so hard. Specifically, and you touched on it as well when you talked about how you experience it and the IMAX. When you saw it in IMAX, I saw it in IMAX. They call it, oh man, RXP.
Okay.
Where it's like apparently the vibrations get in the seats or whatever.
So it's kind of like D-Box in a way. It's kind of like D-Box. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite
Where'd you
sure.
go to see it? I'm just curious.
I saw it at the Regal.
Oh, Regal. Okay. Yeah, I forgot that they had that set up. How was it for you?
In terms of just the experience.
Just in terms of the experience, because that's really
technicality of it. It was great. We Chelsea and I, my girlfriend, we had a front, not a front row seat, middle and perfectly middle seat because there weren't that many people on a Tuesday night. But the sound completely enveloped you, as most theaters should. But I felt it especially so. Not only in, I guess, I kind of wish the vendor hadn't told me that I was going to see it in some super special audio thing, because then I might have my thought process might have lent into it. Mm-hmm. But I really feel like, especially when Christopher Nolan introduced the German dive bombers, mm-hmm. there were 3 distinct moments that you will never forget. It struck me like in War of the Worlds, the Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds. I want to say 2005.
Yes,
with Tom Cruise. 2005. You know the tripod sound, mm-hmm. and it's like it. The exact same thing happened with Christopher Nolan when he introduced the dive bombers, and that sound lent itself so well to that theater. I absolutely agree. I don't think people are going to get the exact same experience or even close to an experience when they eventually watch this on DVD. And you got to appreciate an artist like Christopher Nolan when he takes a step like, hey, yes. I don't care about how you're going to see this at home. This is movies. This is my craft. This is my world. Just have to deal with it.
No, I do agree that, and that's the thing that I think is going to hurt this film as a whole. I think that it's going to be, in due time, it's going to be a movie that people are going to watch on TV, even those that are, like I said, championing it in the present day right now in this moment, and they're going to see just how thin, because I don't want to say empty, because this movie's not empty. I want to say how thin it is. This movie is very fixated on detail. This movie is very fixated on craft. I highly recommend, because I did this before, and I'd even like to do a segment on this one day in the future after I watch more of Nolan's older films. I would recommend you go to Christopher Nolan's Wikipedia page. And normally I don't recommend Wikipedia pages. I would recommend full articles, but I think Nolan's Wikipedia page is an interesting, comprehensive summation. And go to where he talks about filmmaking style, and go to where it talks about methods and how heavily bent Nolan's movies are on diagrams, geometry, and just sort of meticulous mathematical structure. Now, what I appreciate about that is you get shots that are very good in this movie. Shots that show a burning plane, a character placed in front of a burning plane, and like a silhouetted figure. You get beautiful shots like that. Shots on the boat, if you recall an early moment on a boat, or on the boat when the soldier is warning Mark Rylance's character not to pursue Dunkirk, and you can see Dunkirk going up in flames through the windshield of the boat. Shots like that are incredible, and shots like that are memorable. But the thing with this movie, though, is that it's still my main problem with Nolan's filmmaking style. And it's really my only problem, because I know a lot of film purists and stuff, they go crazy on like critiquing Nolan because he's so loved by mainstream. The problem with Nolan's filmmaking style, in my opinion, is it's very, as I agree with what Leonard Maltin called it, it's very cold, it's very humorless, and it's very samey looking too in a lot of respect. And then when you get kind of the Hans Zimmer score that sort of mixes in with the gunfire and the explosions and stuff, you get a movie that kind of goes into what Nolan is known for, a little bit to breeding contempt rather than breeding something you feel in the moment is very visceral or very subversive, I think.
I absolutely agree. Especially there are times where people are dirtied up, their faces are covered by oil or dirt or whatever, and at times it does get samey to the point where I can't tell what certain characters are.
Yeah,
especially when everyone is in a British uniform,
absolutely.
World War II uniform.
And I think that's part of intent. I don't think you make something like this and you're not cognizant of the fact that people are going to lose track of characters. I make no business to say. I believe I said it in my review, which you could read at stevethemovieman.proboards.com as always, and influxmagazine.com. I said before in my review, I believe too. I said that this is a movie that, like, I admittedly had a hard time keeping track of characters throughout this movie. I did. And I mean, did you notice too that One Direction star Harry Styles is in this movie? Did you notice that?
I did notice it because I was kind of looking for him. I wasn't like obsessed. I wasn't part of the like row over, whoa, Harry Styles in this movie. Like, people were up in arms over that for no good reason at all.
Absolutely.
But and he did his job.
Yeah, he did his job
very well. You know?
Yes,
he doesn't really have a time to shine in this movie. But this is not.
Nobody really does except for Rylance, I'd argue.
Exactly.
Except for Rylance. Mm-hmm. You know, he's the only one. But yeah again,
Harry Styles did fine. But to get back to what you were saying earlier, I did notice because I was kind of looking for him. But after that, especially when they start to get towards the last third of the film, like it's really hard to tell who is what. Because that is a critical part of the storylines in terms of, okay, who is going to get their just rewards or just dues, or who's going to survive out of this tense situation. Mm-hmm. And we get that. It's like, okay, I see their eyes, but was I supposed to memorize the kind of dirt they had on their face?
No, again, and you see them from the tops of their helmets and stuff like that in very artistic scenes. Now, the benefit, because I am talking critically about why I think it is a little bit of a mistake and pretty unfortunate, I would say, to not get characters like that in the movie, or to not get characters of any kind really in this film. And that I've been talking a lot about the problems, that I will talk about the benefits of that. The one benefit I will say, and that immediately struck me, was just how stripped down everything is, and you were reminded what the main goal of war is for both the enemy, who you view as the enemy, and who you view as the proponent, and that is survival. And you really get that in this movie. You get the struggle and the pure sense of survival, which is so integral to this movie. And then I think you really also get difficulty. You get scenes like, some of my favorite took place in the air with Tom Hardy. And you really see how, like, Tom Hardy's character is confined to about the movable space of an office chair, trying to struggle to really get any kind of stability, and trying to look over his shoulder, find his blind spots, to judge distance, spatial awareness, and real alertness of where the enemy is and how to combat the enemy.
Absolutely, there are many points in this movie where if you are claustrophobic as a viewer, like seriously claustrophobic, you may want to like be careful going into this movie. There are people are drowning, people are trapped in ships. Planes go down, and those planes go to the water. And
it's a scary movie. I mean, it might be one of the most effective horror movies I've seen all year.